Hello and welcome to All About Cars, a weekly show wherein we take all your car buying or otherwise car related questions, and let's get straight to the questions bit this week. And first, let's start with Instagram. And first up, we've got Atul, and Atul wants to know which is a better car to buy, the Hyundai Aura or the Honda Amaze. And we'd say that the Honda Amaze is, of course, a larger car in terms of the shoulder room compared to the Aura. The Aura is a newer car. So if you're looking for a car for 5 people, or if you've got tall people in your family, then Amaze is a better option to go for. The Aura is, of course, a smaller car, like we said, but it's also nice to drive. And the turbo version is actually a really good car to, like an affordable car to have driving fun with. So if you like driving, I think the Aura Turbo, and if you want space, then the Honda Amaze. अगला क्वेश्चन इंस्टाग्राम पे जैद ने भेजा है हमें, और वो जानना चाहते हैं कि XUV 500 का इंजन कितने किलोमीटर्स चलता है। तो किसी भी कार का इंजन, चाहे डीजल हो चाहे पेट्रोल हो, डीजल शायद ज़्यादा, काफ़ी लाखों किलोमीटर्स के लिए बनाया जाता है। ऑफ कोर्स आपको उसकी सर्विसिंग ठीक से टाइम पे करानी पड़ती है और ज़्यादा ओवरलोडेड कंडीशंस में नहीं चलाना पड़ता। तो आराम से लाखों किलोमीटर्स चलता है XUV का इंजन, जस्ट लाइक आप इनोवा का ले लीजिए या किसी और का। हो सकता है रिप्लेसमेंट जो पार्ट्स के हों वो आपको डिफरेंट टाइम पे कराना पड़े कंपेयर टू अ डिफरेंट कार, लेकिन ओवरऑल अगर आप मेंटेनेंस ठीक रखेंगे और उसका ध्यान रखेंगे तो जैसे मैंने कहा लाखों किलोमीटर्स तक चलता है XUV का इंजन। Now let's take some questions off Facebook, and we've got Hamid, and Hamid wants to know that the Wagon R with a 1.2 liter engine, is it worth buying, and what about especially when you consider features and performance. So the 1.2 engine is the same that you get in the Swift. It's a nice engine in terms of performance. It's torquey. You've got a good low and mid range. It's a little noisy, but a nice engine to have. It's probably if you feather the throttle and drive carefully, it's pretty fuel efficient too. In terms of features, I think the 1.2 is available from the VXI version, and the Wagon R you don't really buy for features as much as you buy for practicality and space. And that's what it's there for. A great city car for people who are not really keen on driving as much but want to use a car from getting from point A to B for utility purpose, and the 1.2 works in that regard. So if you like the Wagon R 1.2, yes, it's definitely worth going for. Kulandi wants to know whether he should go for the Ford Aspire diesel or the Skoda Rapid. And he says that he's a driving enthusiast, and because you said that you're a driving enthusiast, we'd say go for the Rapid. It is certainly a car that's now old in the tooth in terms of design, inside and out, and it's been there forever, but even when it comes to driving, I think it still is quite a nice car to go for, and if you are a driving enthusiast, that's what we'd recommend. Iqbal says that he's on the obese side of things, and he wants to know which car he could go for which has large captain seats. So I think the car or something that you need to go for is an SUV, and probably you want to go for a slightly older school SUV which have flatter seats rather than the newer ones which are more contoured for support. So we'd say something like the Bolero makes sense. Something like the Scorpio also makes sense if you want to go for that class. And if you want to look at, let's say, something that's more affordable, then you can buy a used Sumo because that's also got pretty flat seats and it's also easy to get in and get out, and lots of space as well. Sunny's written to us and he's asked us what SUV should he go for. His budget is 80 lakhs. So, and he says that he's mostly going to be using it in the city, 40 kilometers in the city. So that's sort of running. Now my picks would be the Volvo XC60 and the Land Rover Discovery. So these are the two options that I would say are right on top of my list. Between these two, I think the XC60 is a much better car when it comes to ride comfort, when it comes to overall dynamics and living with the car, especially in the city. The Discovery probably is the one that you want to go for if you are more inclined to, or you're going to experience more dirt roads or a little bit of difficult terrain off-road. So that's the difference. The XC60 can also off-road, but clearly the Discovery is in a different league when it comes to that. Pankaj is interested in buying the XUV 300 diesel. He says he wants to buy the W8 version, and he says that he's already booked it and the dealer said that it will be delivered, but it's not, and now they're saying that the car will be delivered sometime in January. So he's asking us why that could be, because the dealers have not been able to, or the dealer has not been able to give him a satisfying answer. So we'd say I think that delay is good. Now the only thing that you need to be careful about, and I say the delay is good because now when you get the car in January, it will be a 2021 car, not a 2020 car. If you buy a 2020 car in December, you're already losing some sort of money, because when you go to sell the car, year is probably the first thing that people look at, and it doesn't matter whether it's January or December. So you're getting a new year car, a 2021 car, at least that is what you need to be careful about when you take the delivery of the car, that it's actually a 2021 car, because you're already waiting for it to be delivered in Jan. We have had cases in the past, and not specific to Mahindra, but in general there people say that they actually deliver cars in January, February, March, and they're actually a year old, as in like say the previous year cars. So that's something that you want to be careful about, and if you're getting a previous year car, then of course you're well within your right to refuse it. And now let's take some questions off Twitter. So we've got Sanket, and he says that he is looking at upsizing his tire from 15 to 16, and he says he drives mostly on bumpy roads, so would it help? He's got a Sedan Petrol, or he says should he go for an SUV? So I think making a tire replacement or a tire upgrade is a much cheaper, sensible solution than going for an all-new car, an SUV. But we wouldn't say that going up on wheel size is actually going to help your ride, because when you go up on wheel size, you're going to go down on the tire profile, which is actually going to make your ride worse. So you should stick with 15. You've got some space in the wheel well. Maybe you should go for a taller tire profile, and if that's not available, then maybe you could also consider going down on a wheel size and going up on the tire profile, because the higher the tire profile, the better the absorption you're going to get, especially on the primary ride front. We've got Shiv Guru, and he's confused between buying the Hyundai Venue and the Kia Sonet, and he says which one should he go for. He's saying which vehicle will be, when it comes to service and parts availability, which would make more sense. So they are essentially the same car, and I don't think you should have a problem in terms of service or spares availability. Maybe the Venue sells more than the Sonet, or it's got more dealerships, so you might be able to get a difficult spare sooner in Hyundai than Kia, but I mean it's just guesstimate. There's no hard fact backing that statement of mine. But between the two, I think the Sonet is a nicer car in the sense that it looks richer on the inside, and on the outside it looks more aggressive. So if you want something that's younger to look at, probably the Sonet is a better option. But otherwise these cars are pretty similar. The Sonet is also probably slightly stiffer in terms of ride compared to the Venue, but in both cases they're good cars to drive, so you can't go wrong with either. If we had to pick, we'd probably take the Sonet because it's newer and the interior just feel step up. And now let's take some questions of our YouTube video last week. Thank you for writing in. And first up, we've got Ajay, and Ajay wants to know what is the future for diesel cars. He says if he buys a diesel car today, what happens in 10 years? And should he go for the Ford EcoSport diesel base version? So diesel cars in 10 years will not be allowed to ply on the road or re-register. For petrol cars, I think it's 15 years, but this is a ruling that's applicable only to Delhi NCR, not so for the rest of the country. Now, if you buy the diesel, or if you buy a diesel car, Nothing changes in terms of ownership, nothing changes in terms of how you're going to own, run, drive it, or enjoy it. But yes, when you want to sell it, the closer you are to selling it towards the 10-year bracket, naturally you're going to get less value for it. Now, before this ruling, you could continue to use the car for no matter how many years, and so you would definitely, or you used to get more resale value, which isn't the case now, especially for Delhi NCR region. The rest of the places, I think it should still be fine. Now, should you go for the Ford EcoSport diesel in base trim? I think the diesel engine is a nice one. It's a torquey one. And if you drive it carefully, it's reasonably fuel efficient. It's a little noisy, but otherwise, the EcoSport in terms of design, I mean, you can hear the engine more outside than inside, but it's a good option to go for. We'd say that maybe you want to move up a little from the base version so that you get more value for your money. But otherwise, if you like the car, certainly go for it. Akshat is asking us if we can help him choose between an SUV or a sedan, and he says his budget is a little under 30 lakhs. So we'd say that if you can extend your budget a little, then we'd say go for the Superb. It's a really nice car to drive and own and have. But if you can't, then of course the Jeep Compass would be our recommendation. Now we've got Balaji, and Balaji is asking us which one should he go for, the S-Cross or the Nexon XZ Plus. He's keen on safety, a reliable engine, spacious car and maintenance. So we'd say the Nexon makes more sense for you to go for, because A, you're going to also get better resale, and in other terms that you've listed, it fits that bill better than the S-Cross. Tejash has asked us whether he should go for the Nexon XMA, the Magnite CVT, or the Brezza VXI 80, and he's asked us which is the better car when it comes to long-term maintenance, space, comfort, as in low maintenance cost, of course. So now we don't know what the maintenance cost for the Magnite will be, but from whatever we've spoken to Nissan, they're targeting a low maintenance cost for this car. It will be essential to help push this car and sell more. Plus, it's going to come at a lower price point, so naturally maintenance overall will be in line with that. Between these three, if we were to keep maintenance aside, because we're not very clear on that right now, we'd say the Nissan Magnite, when it comes to automatics out of these three, has the best automatic. I mean, if you like automatics or if you want a refined automatic that really works seamlessly, especially in the city, the Magnite CVT is a lovely option to go for. Next, we've got Saurabh, and Saurabh wants to know that why do we recommend, or we must have done this in one of the earlier videos, that why did we recommend the Sonet for under 15 lakh budget and not like a mid-spec Seltos or Creta? So the idea is simple. I mean, you still get an SUV in the Sonet. It's a smaller SUV, but it can still seat 5. Yes, you have a smaller boot. The other two will have a bigger boot. Unless you're looking for size, unless you're looking for presence, and unless you're looking, to travel with lots of luggage and 5 people all the time, the Sonet is a better option because it's smaller. It is more efficient because it's smaller. It's better handling because it's smaller. It's easier to park because it's smaller and less expensive, or not less expensive, because we're still looking at the same price point essentially, but you get a higher spec version, so you get more features. So overall, the value proposition, I think, for the Sonet would be better than a mid-spec or a low-spec Creta and Seltos. अगला क्वेश्चन रमाना ने लिखा है हमें, और वो जानना चाहते हैं कि 12 से 18 लाख के बीच में कौन सी एसयूवी लेनी चाहिए। अभी उनके पास डस्टर 110 है, और वो चाहते हैं इस नई एसयूवी में हैंडलिंग चाहते हैं, एक अच्छा सॉलिड सस्पेंशन सेटअप उनको चाहिए, और तो पूछ रहे हैं कौन सी कार लेनी चाहिए, कौन सी एसयूवी लेनी चाहिए। अगर आपको कंफर्ट चाहिए, अच्छा कंफर्टेबल राइड क्वालिटी चाहिए, क्वाइट कैबिन चाहिए, तो क्रेटा लीजिए। अगर आपको थोड़ी स्पोर्टीनेस चाहिए सस्पेंशन में, हैंडलिंग में, तो सेल्टोस इस प्राइस ब्रैकेट में आपको मिल जाएगी। और अगर आपको एक इनसे ज़्यादा स्पेशियस और थोड़ी अप मार्केट लुकिंग कार विद थोड़े मतलब फीचर्स में तो खैर ज़्यादा फ़र्क नहीं होगा, लेकिन ओवरऑल लुक एंड फील में अगर आपको एक थोड़ी लार्जर कार, थोड़ी और प्रीमियमनेस चाहिए तो आप MG की हेक्टर भी देख सकते हैं, बट ड्राइविंग डायनामिक्स वाइज वो क्रेटा और सेल्टोस के आसपास नहीं आती है, तो वो आप ध्यान में रखिएगा। और अगर आपको डस्टर के साथ ही चलना है तो आप 1.3 टर्बो देख सकते हैं। कार एसेंशली सेम ही है एसयूवी, मतलब कुछ खास चेंज नहीं है, थोड़ा लुक्स में डिफरेंस है। सस्पेंशन और ड्राइविंग फील ऑलमोस्ट सेम है, बट इंजन ऑफ कोर्स पेट्रोल है, टर्बो चार्ज है, बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छा इंजन है, बहुत पसंद आया हमें जब हमने चलाया। और ओवरऑल कार अगर इन चारों में जो मैंने मेंशन किया, अगर इसमें अगर सिर्फ ड्राइविंग फोकस आप करना चाहें तो ऑफ कोर्स डस्टर 1.3 टर्बो, डस्टर अभी भी वही सही ऑप्शन रहेगा। मेंटेनेंस वाइज इंजन में कोई तकलीफ नहीं है, टर्बो इंजन है, पेट्रोल इंजन है, तो नेचुरली एस्पिरेटेड इंजन से थोड़े ज़्यादा मूविंग पार्ट्स हैं उसमें, बट प्रॉपर्ली टेस्टेड है तो कोई प्रॉब्लम या तकलीफ नहीं होनी चाहिए आपको। तो अगर आपको डस्टर चाहिए तो 1.3 इज़ ऑल्सो अ वेरी गुड ऑप्शन टू गो फॉर। वीव गॉट अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम Yesu, and this is the third such question that we've got. The question is whether should go for the Ford Aspire diesel or the Skoda Rapid, and like we said in the past, if you like driving, go for the Rapid. The Aspire makes sense if you're looking for low maintenance, and I mean, it's difficult to say what better service experience, because Skoda says that it's picked up its the service game quite a bit, but Ford, I've personally experienced service and it's really never an issue. Of course, maintenance costs low. So if you want good low maintenance, take the Aspire. If you want a nice car to drive that's also more spacious than the Aspire, then the Rapid makes more sense. We've got Madhuneet next, and Madhuneet wants to or is asking whether it makes practical sense to buy an EV today, and if he wants to buy an EV, should he wait for the Altroz EV? What would the pricing of the Altroz EV be? And if not an EV at this time, should he go for the i20 Turbo DCT or the new Polo? What he's looking for is safety, fun of driving, convenience features. Yeah, these are the things that he's looking for. So EVs today make sense if you're living in a newer building, if your office has charging infrastructure in place, you've got reasonably good range now from cars, let's say, and we'll refer to the Nexon because you're talking about the Altroz, the Nexon EV. It's got a decent range. I mean, I stay in an old building and it's very difficult to get a charging infrastructure, a charging point there. But in newer buildings, I think it's mandatory, or they're more friendly towards it. So if you're staying in such a building, of course, get it. It's still not going to be like a handy option to do long distance trips. Maybe if you're in Bombay and you want to drive to Goa, maybe, unless you've got a charging point in between, it's probably going to cause you some anxiety. But if you're just going to use the car for the city and you stay in a new building, you've got an infrastructure and office, then absolutely EV makes sense. It's still not a great widespread option. Now, should you go for the Altroz EV? I think given how good the Nexon EV is to drive, the Altroz EV should also be good. And about the pricing, we've seen how Tata has priced the Nexon. It's well priced for an EV, it's well priced for the car, for the size of car it is. So the Altroz is also going to be well priced. It will sit under the Nexon in terms of pricing, EV to EV. So yeah, and if you cannot buy an EV for the conditions or for the things that we told you, then there is no new Polo coming in a hurry. So go for the i20 DCT Asta. Omkar says that he's looking for a petrol mid-size automatic SUV in the range of up to 40 lakh rupees, and he's looking for, I mean, the SUV will be driven by a 65 aged male, city driving mainly in and around the city, and priorities are premium interiors, a plush ride, piece of ownership. And the options he's given include the Tucson CR-V Karoq, and also Tiguan and Kodiaq should they be considered. So there is no Kodiaq on sale right now. The Tiguan all space is run out. What else? The Karoq is also, I think, sold out because they brought in limited units, fully imported units. So that leaves the Tucson and the CR-V, and between these two, I'd say the CR-V is for your needs. the CR-V makes more sense. Kunjalata has asked us that if the weekly running is around 50 kilometers, does diesel make sense? The car in consideration is the EcoSport Titanium Diesel. It says that the car will be kept in the household for a long time. Now, given your weekly running of under 50 kilometers, I think it just doesn't make sense to buy diesel. Go for the petrol. That makes more sense. But clearly, if you want the EcoSport Titanium in diesel, well then it's not like buying a diesel if you run only 50 kilometers a week is going to be a problem. It might not make as much economic sense if you can buy a petrol, similarly sized petrol, a similar car in petrol at a lesser price. But I mean, there is absolutely no harm in buying a diesel if you have low running, apart from economics, so to say. Okay. Now we've got Sachi, and Sachi's asked us a non-car buying question. The question is that we hear a lot of people talking about platforms. What does a platform really mean, like CMFA or MQB? What does that really mean, and in the simplest terms? So I would say a platform is essentially defined by like 2-3 things. What is defined? I mean, your hard points, where your suspension goes, where your firewall will be, the wiring harness, the choice of engines, drivetrains, etc. So these are all designed and to fit. I mean, you can test them and you can set that as a base, and that's the platform, and then you can have some flexibility in what you want to do with it. So you want to, let's say, have a wider track. You can do that. If you want to have a longer wheelbase by changing the length of the floor pan, for instance, you can do that. You want to change the top hat, as in what the car looks like on top while the platform remains the same. You can do that. So, but you can only do it to a limited extent. It's not like if you design a platform for, let's say, a small car, that you can make a 5 feet luxury garage out of it. There are limitations, and what this helps is that this helps in economies of scale. So it helps the manufacturer, be it in terms of R&D, producing it, crash testing it, etc. So that, in short, or in the simplest terms, is what a platform is. Of course, when you dig deeper, it's a much more complicated system or thing that it is. And that's a wrap on All About Cars for this week. Do comment and like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.